It means a lot to us that there are still people who are enjoying the new Yankee workshop, and we want to reach out and thank you all.
And just have a great time woodworking. It's a fun thing to do.
For decades, Norm Abram stood in the new Yankee workshop like a symbol of calm craftsmanship. A man who made even the most complicated woodworking projects feel warm, simple, and achievable. His gentle voice, steady hands, and reassuring presence turned a small workshop into one of the most beloved educational shows on television. But behind the comforting sound of sawdust and the charm of his plaid shirts, Norm hid a truth that fans never knew. A truth that would one day become the most heartbreaking chapter of his life. As viewers watched him build furniture piece by piece, few realized that the man who inspired millions was quietly fighting a private battle that grew heavier year after year. Rumors circulated for a long time, especially when he began appearing less frequently, but no one expected the real reason. Now, after years of silence, Norm's story has finally come to light, and it's far more emotional than anyone. Imagine that this is not just the story of a television legend. It is the story of a man who gave everything to his craft, only to face a tragedy that changed the course of his life forever. And once you learn what truly happened, you may never look at the new Yankee workshop the same way again. Norm Abram's rise to television. Fame began long before he ever stepped in front of a camera. Growing up in Massachusetts, he was introduced to woodworking at an early age, often watching his father repair furniture, build small household items, and transform raw pieces of lumber into something meaningful. Those early days planted a quiet fascination within him, not just for the craft itself, but for the patience, discipline, and care that woodworking demanded. While many would eventually drift toward different paths, Norm's connection to wood, tools, and craftsmanship only deepened. It wasn't long before he began taking on small projects of his own, shaping his skills piece by piece, without imagining that one day the world would be watching. Norm's career truly began to take shape when he started working as a professional carpenter. His reputation for precision and consistency quickly spread, leading him to jobs that required not only technical expertise but a level of trust many craftsmen never achieve. This dedication caught the eye of television producer Russell Morrish, who visited one of Norm's job sites and was immediately impressed. Morrish saw something in him, a calm, patient craftsman whose presence felt effortless yet reassuring. It wasn't long before he invited Norm to appear on a small segment for This Old House, a moment that would change Norm's life forever. Viewers connected with him instantly. Unlike many personalities on television, Norm was never flashy, loud, or overly dramatic. He spoke with a gentle confidence, explaining each step of the process with clarity and honesty. He didn't rush, didn't exaggerate, and never pretended to be something other than a hardworking carpenter who genuinely loved what he did. This authenticity laid the foundation for the new Yankee workshop, a show that would go on to inspire millions and become a cornerstone of do-it-yourself television. But what most people never knew was the toll that years of filming took on Norm. Each episode required immense preparation, long hours in the workshop, and constant repetition of tasks that, while appearing effortless on camera, demanded physical strain. Woodworking is beautiful, but it is also unforgiving. The work requires standing for long periods, lifting heavy materials and exposing oneself to sawdust, harsh chemicals, and loud machinery. Over time, these demands quietly began affecting Norm's health, something he never openly discussed. During the height of the show's success, Norm kept pushing forward, determined not to let the audience down. He believed that his responsibility was to those who tuned in each week, viewers who saw the workshop as a place of comfort and learning. But behind that comforting smile, the physical pressure was quietly adding up. Friends and co-workers noticed small shifts, occasional fatigue, less energy between takes, moments where his hands seemed slower than they used to be. Norm, always humble and hardworking, simply brushed it off and continued filming. As the show continued, rumors began to circulate about why he seemed to be taking more breaks or appearing less frequently. Some thought he was planning retirement. Others believed he wanted to pursue personal projects. But the truth was far more personal and far more difficult than anyone outside the workshop could see. Norm was dealing with a private struggle that he did not want the world to know about, a struggle that eventually forced him to step back from the work he loved. This was the beginning of the heartbreaking turn in Norm Abram's story. One that would explain everything fans had quietly suspected, but never fully understood. As the years went by, viewers gradually began noticing subtle changes in Norm Abram. Even if they couldn't quite identify what was happening, his movements were a little slower, his posture slightly more strained, and the warm smile that had become a trademark of the new Yankee workshop seemed more cautious than before. What fans didn't know was that Norm was quietly confronting a physical battle that had intensified behind the scenes. Decades of working with powerful tools, breathing in fine sawdust, and maneuvering heavy equipment had begun catching up with him, creating health challenges that were nearly impossible to ignore. And yet, in true Norm fashion, he continued filming, committed to giving his audience the same calm encouragement and expertise he always had. The demands of the workshop, however, were relentless. Every project required meticulous planning and hours of repetitive physical labor. Even with a team supporting the show's production, the core of the work fell on Norm's shoulders. While viewers saw a seamless, polished process, the behind-the-scenes reality involved numerous takes, adjustments, and constant hands-on tasks. Over time, the cumulative strain began affecting his joints, back, and energy levels. Woodworking is an art, but it is also physically punishing, especially after decades of performing the same movements day after day. Norm was beginning to feel the consequences. Consequences he didn't want to burden anyone with. Privately, he wrestled with the decision to step back. The show had become more than a job. It was a part of his identity. Fans looked to him as a mentor, a teacher, and a comforting presence who made complicated projects feel accessible. The idea of disappointing them weighed heavily on him. Still, the quiet truth he carried was that continuing at the pace the show demanded was becoming harder and harder. Regardless of how much he loved being in the workshop, his body could no longer handle the routine without pain or exhaustion. It was a realization that forced him to confront the limits he had spent years trying to push through. Adding to this emotional burden was another, heartbreaking factor. The show itself was evolving, and the television landscape was changing. The traditional, slow-paced educational style of the new Yankee workshop was competing with faster, louder, and more dramatic forms of entertainment. Norm understood that the era of long-form instructional programming was shifting, and he began wondering whether it was better to step away gracefully rather than push himself through a changing industry that demanded more energy than he could offer. The show's loyal audience remained devoted, but producers and networks knew that television was moving in a different direction. Norm's personal life also played a role in his decision. For years, he had missed family events, holidays, and countless small moments because filming schedules were demanding and unpredictable. As he began to feel the effects of aging, he realized how much time had quietly slipped away. The tragedy of his situation wasn't just physical, it was emotional. He had given his entire heart to the workshop, and in doing so, sacrificed years that could have been spent with loved ones. The guilt of this weighed on him more than any physical strain. When rumors spread that he might be facing a serious health issue, Norm remained silent, partly because he did not want sympathy, and partly because he believed his personal struggles had no place in the comforting world he created for viewers. But behind that silence was a man wrestling with the reality that his body could no longer support the very work that defined him. The tragedy wasn't a sudden event, it was the slow, painful realization that the craft he loved was taking a toll he never anticipated. This was the emotional crossroads Norm reached long before his departure from television became public. And while the world saw a graceful exit, few understood the heartbreak that came before it. As Norm Abram stepped further away from the camera, fans began searching for answers. Why had he disappeared so quietly? Why was there no dramatic farewell, no final emotional episode, no announcement that truly explained what he was going through? The truth is far more heartbreaking than viewers ever imagined. Norm had always been a private man, someone who valued humility and simplicity far more than attention. And when his health troubles grew more serious, he chose to keep them hidden, not out of secrecy, but out of a desire to protect the show, the audience, and even himself from becoming a subject of speculation or pity. The physical challenges he faced were slowly robbing him of the precision he had spent a lifetime perfecting. Woodworking demands controlled movements, steady hands, patience, and strength, all qualities Norm possessed in abundance throughout his career. But the wear and tear of decades in the workshop, combined with the unavoidable realities of aging, made tasks that were once effortless become increasingly difficult. Norm began worrying that a simple mistake could lead to injury. Cameras capture everything, and he feared that any visible struggle would overshadow the joy and calmness that defined the new Yankee workshop. He didn't want viewers to watch him with concern. He wanted them to remember the master craftsman, not a man fighting against his own body. Even more painful was the emotional impact of stepping away. Norm knew he was walking away from a world he helped build from the ground up. For more than 2 decades, he had been the reassuring voice that guided viewers through every measurement, cut, and finish. The workshop wasn't just a set, it was a home, a sanctuary, and the center of a community built on curiosity, creativity, and trust. Leaving it behind felt like losing a part of himself. There were days when he questioned whether he had made the right choice. But he also knew that continuing would mean ignoring the warning signs his body was desperately sending. Friends and colleagues later shared that Norm often struggled with the emotional weight of stepping back. He felt a responsibility to his fans, many of whom had been watching since the very beginning. People wrote letters explaining how the show helped them build a career, repair a broken home, reconnect with a parent, or find peace during difficult times. Norm carried those stories with him, understanding that his work had become woven into the lives of millions. Leaving that behind was one of the most painful decisions he ever made. As the years passed, the rumors surrounding his disappearance grew, and with no official explanation, fans filled the silence with speculation. Some believed he had taken on new projects. Others assumed he had quietly retired to enjoy his personal life. A few feared the truth, that the man who taught the world how to build was facing a battle he could no longer work through. And in a way, they were right. His health issues were not sudden, but a gradual decline brought on by years of dedication, long filming days, and a lifetime spent breathing sawdust and working with demanding tools. He didn't want the world to see the deterioration. He wanted the legacy to remain intact. What makes Norm's story so heartbreaking isn't just the physical struggle, but the emotional toll of saying goodbye to the place that shaped him. Stepping out of the workshop meant accepting a chapter of life was closing, one filled with memories, accomplishments, and moments that defined his journey. For someone as deeply connected to his craft as Norm, that acceptance did not come easily. This was the quiet tragedy behind the calm exterior. A beloved craftsman whose body could no longer support the passion that defined his life. Forced to step away from the world he built with his own hands. In the years since, Norm Abram quietly stepped away from the public eye. The truth about his situation has become clearer, and the heartbreaking reality of what he endured has finally come into focus. While fans hoped he had simply chosen a peaceful retirement, the deeper truth is far more emotional. Norm's health challenges continued to impact his daily life, and the physical abilities that once defined him began to fade faster than he ever expected. Tasks that had once been second nature, cutting precise joints, lifting heavy lumber, sanding a tabletop to perfection, became difficult and sometimes even painful. Accepting these limitations was not easy for a man whose entire identity was built around skill, precision, and craftsmanship. But despite his struggles, Norm never allowed himself to become bitter. Instead, he embraced a quiet acceptance, choosing to focus on the memories, accomplishments, and legacy he had created. He understood that life is made up of seasons, and while his time in the workshop had been long and meaningful, he knew he needed to prioritize his health and well-being. Even though it broke his heart to step away, he accepted that continuing would only cause more harm. That acceptance, quiet, humble, and brave, became one of the most powerful parts of his story. Norm's departure also revealed just how deeply he had touched the world. Fans of the new Yankee workshop continued to share how much he meant to them. Stories poured in from people who learned woodworking because of him, repaired their family homes with his guidance, or even found comfort during difficult times simply by watching him build. His gentle voice, calm explanations, and steady hands created a sense of peace for viewers who tuned in to escape the chaos of everyday life. Norm may not have sought fame, but he became a companion in living rooms across the country, someone who felt familiar, trustworthy, and comforting. The most emotional part of Norm's story, however, is what he revealed about the true weight of his departure. He admitted that leaving the workshop felt like losing a part of his soul. But it also forced him to confront the one thing he had avoided for years: the realization that even the strongest craftsman cannot outrun time. The aging process, combined with decades of physically demanding work, had slowly taken away the tools his body once relied on. In many ways, it was not just a health battle. It was an emotional letting go of the life he had built board by board. Yet through all the heartbreak, Norm also found gratitude. He spoke about feeling fortunate to have spent so many years doing what he loved. He expressed appreciation for the viewers who supported him, the colleagues who worked beside him, and the simple joy of creating something with his own hands. Even though his workshop days were behind him, he took pride in knowing that his legacy would endure through every project he taught, every piece he demonstrated, and every person he inspired. Today, Norm Abram's story stands as a poignant reminder of dedication, humility, and the inevitable passage of time. It is the story of a man who poured his heart into a craft he adored, only to face the painful reality that his body could no longer keep up. But rather than allowing the ending to define him, he chose to celebrate the journey, a journey filled with creativity, patience, and the unmistakable warmth that made him a beloved figure in American television. The tragedy of Norm Abram is not only what he lost, but what he carried quietly for so long. And even though he stepped away from the workshop, his influence continues to live on in every project completed by someone he inspired. His hands may no longer guide the tools, but the lessons he shared will last for generations.